man, this is absolutely terrifying. Nice, one person. Oh man, okay, good. People are starting to join. I was wondering there for a second. Cool. Wait till a few more people get in here. Hey! Hi, Kaden. Hi, Auntie Donna. Gonna wait till a few more people get in here before I do anything. I wish y'all could see the setup I have. I've got like 2 boxes stacked on each other, and my phone is propped up with a pop socket and a shoebox. I don't have a tripod. I'm really just doing my best here. Oh, it doesn't matter if Caden's late. We're not gonna start until we have more than 2 people in here, which is the case right now. Oh well. I mean, if it ends up just being 2 people in a couple minutes, then oh well. Oh man, Ryan's here. Hi, Ryan. Learning some improv. Ryan, you're here in my Junior Jellies live stream. So I do improv. I teach improv to kids at the library, and we can't really do that at the library right now because the library's closed. So we're gonna have some fun while I'm here alone in my house. Haven't changed out of sweatpants for about a week and a half, you know, just vibes. Hey, Kaden! So we got about 4 people, but it is only 2 minutes in, so we'll see what happens. Caden's the only person who frequents my Junior Jelly stuff from who's in the chat right now, so usually what we do at Junior Jellies is it's a lot of games, and I try and teach improv through games. It's hard to do any games when it's just me, so today specifically I'm just gonna talk about some improv theory and why I think it's a great thing, and if this goes well and people like it and we continue it later, I might get more into more practical improv and more me doing things alone on live, but it's hard. I can go on stage in front of 200 people in a high-stakes final situation and perform fine, but I'm on live in front of 3 people right now, and it's terrifying. I don't know why this is the thing that makes me nervous, but cool. So how, while we're sitting here with 3 people, how's everyone's quarantine been going? Keeping busy? This is the weirdest experience of my life. I feel like I'm just talking to a wall. Man, all the press, tourism, Red Deer reposted that we were going live, and only 3 of you. I don't have a Switch or Animal Crossing, and I have such bad FOMO. Like, I feel like I'm missing out a lot. I've asked people, oh, cool. Yeah, it's, I mean, yeah, that's definitely, I just technically got laid off today, so, yeah, no, I feel going outside's a little funky right now, but, you know, if it helps everyone stay healthy in the long run, and if we can flatten that curve, it'll all be worth it, I think. I think if we look at numbers and how Canada's responded to things versus specifically our neighbors to the south, I think you can really tell that what we're doing is working. So might as well keep to it. All right, I might as well start. There's only 3 people, but you know what? That's enough. So, my experience in improv. Oh, hi, Breck! Just in time. Wow, that's actually really that's really funny because Breck's late to my normal Junior Jelly sessions too, and he's late to this one. What a guy. Okay, Yeah, so my experience in improv, I started doing improv in drama classes when I was in grade 7 and grade 8, and I really loved it. And then in grade 9, it kind of saved my life. I was doing a lot of sports, and I was not accepted widely in those communities, so I found improv, and I found a place where I felt safe. I learned how to fail. People supported me. People accepted me. And that was something I really needed. So I've been doing improv since. I did improv competitively on teams in high school. And now I'm with Improv Jelly. And I've been to improv camp. I've done improv then. I've been to festivals in Ottawa. Like, I know my improv. So that's, if anyone needed my credentials, there they are. For those who don't necessarily know a ton about improv, it's something that you can't really wrap your head around practicing, because it's like, if it's all messed up or made up, how are you supposed to practice or train or get good at improv? But I like to think of it as like, if you know a lot about sports, like in practices in hockey, you practice passing, you practice shooting, you have specific plays that you set up, and in a game situation, those plays aren't going to go 100%. You have your play set up, but the nature of the game is that it's never going to happen. But you still have those tools in place, so you kind of know what you're doing or what to do if you get in a certain situation. So improv's kind of like that. We teach when we're training, when we're practicing, we learn specific tools, specific I don't know the word, but we learn some things and we put them in place so that when we get in a scene, you know, okay, my scene needs a platform, my scene needs some offers, I need a good story arc. So you have these tools in place, and you can use a formula that, even if it is made up and you're alone in an office talking to a webcam, you still know what to do and set it up. So that's how I like to explain it. The philosophy of improv really is positivity and supporting people. Improv teaches you how to fail, because you're gonna fail if you're making things up based on an audience suggestion and there's human error involved because you're doing it with someone. You're gonna mess up. But I feel like doing improv prepares you for life, because in life you're gonna mess up. You can be the most prepared person ever. You can have your whole life planned out, set out for you. You can take every precaution, and then a giant pandemic will hit you out of nowhere and everything will disappear. You'll have to adapt. So, also just like public speaking, improv is good at public speaking. I say that as I'm really struggling. I've never done a live before. This is such a surreal experience. But that's a lot of rambling about philosophy. So I guess I'll jump into the basics. Like I said at the start, when there were only 3 people, when I run Junior Jellies as a program at the library, it's usually like just me trying to teach certain things through games. I can't do that in an office alone. So today I'm just gonna talk a lot about basics and improv theory and improv philosophy and see how it goes, and if it's received well and people like it, then I'll keep continuing and I'll keep finding new things to teach, and I might do some solo improv alone, which is terrifying, but I'll do it. Yeah, Caden, you're good at public speaking. You've got a lot of experience, and you're a good improviser too. I'd say those aren't mutually exclusive. There's a reason you're good at both. If we think about the rules of improv, I think everyone, even if you know nothing about improv, the first thing you think about is yes and. And as cliche as it is, that's really important. If someone is, like, you're setting up a basic situation and you're setting up a tone. And if everyone, So blocking in improv is saying no to an offer. So we say yes and because if you're in a scene and someone's just shooting you down every single time you give an offer, it's not going to be a good scene. Like, if I'm going up in a scene and I'm like, yeah, I'm Jason the cowboy, and we're gonna go wrangling some cows on the moon, and the person with you is like, no, my name's Jessica, we're going to the mall. Like, you're really just setting your teammates up for failure, and it might get a cheap laugh in the moment, but that's a cheap laugh. It's 2 seconds of laughing. Yeah, Kaden, no blocking, you're right. You get a laugh in the moment, but you ruin the entire scene. And while a lot of people see improv as comedy, and a lot of times in popular media it's portrayed as comedy, I think in practicum, improv's a lot more about telling stories. Or at least that's my philosophy. I really like telling stories through improv. One thing that we've been working a lot with the junior Jellies, Talon calls it waffling because he put together waffling and blocking one day, and he thought it was really funny, so we kept that. But blocking and then waffling is asking too many questions. When you're doing improv, you want to avoid asking too many questions, because that really puts the burden on your partner to fill information. Like, it's not as bad as just outright saying no, but if you answer every offer with a question, you're giving nothing to the situation. You might as well not even be in the scene, because your partner is doing everything to provide for that scene. I mean, I feel like this applies to all walks of life, like English and art, but we teach the rules so we can learn how to break them. So of course, once you know improv, you can ask questions if they're like well suited to the scene and you're adding something and you're not putting the burden on your friends or your scene partners. Yeah, Breck, no waffling. So like, there's a difference between me being like, oh yeah, what do you think we should do today? Or like, where are we? Like, those are two very questions where like you're not giving any information and you're putting the burden on your partners. Whereas if I was in a scene with someone and I said, how absolutely dare you? Like, that's a question. But it endows a relationship. It endows a tone. It shifts the status. Like, it's something that adds to the scene, so it's a little better. But if you're first starting and learning out with improv, don't ask questions. I feel like asking a lot of questions is a nervous reaction. If you don't know how to carry on, you just ask a question. It takes practice. Yeah, it absolutely takes practice. And like, that's just, I feel like with anything, improv is the more you practice, the more you get better. And part of that is learning how to stop asking questions. So what I usually fall back on is, instead of asking questions, I go into hyper detail, because that's funny. I think that's funny. So instead of being like, oh, so what's your name, or who are you, I would go to someone and be like, Janet, my accountant for my wedding 30 years ago that I've kept in contact with for the past 30 years because you did such a good job, and I'm also kind of in love with you. Like, I might just say that. It's weird to say that in a sentence, but that's a lot more entertaining than just being like, who are you? Like, and I think improv with everything is, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. You just kind of have to get out of your head. An important thing in improv is staying in the moment. A lot of pitfalls a lot of people in improv kind of fall into, especially people like me who think too much about all the rules. You kind of get in your head and you start thinking about what the scene's missing. So if I personally am in a scene and I'm improvising, I'll be thinking about, okay, do we have our platform? Do we have our stakes? Do we have these are all words that half of you know, but do we have our stakes? What's the conclusion? What's happening? Like, I'll be thinking about all those things, and then I'll miss things in the scene. Like, someone will give a really good offer, or someone will endow me with something, and because I'm so focused, I won't be able to process it properly, and I'll drop it, and the scene's worse because of it. And if you're less focused on what could happen, or what needs to happen, you're not really paying attention to what is happening. And that was the deepest thing I've ever said in my life. Take that and put it as your grad quote. And if you've already graduated, tattoo it across your forehead. So yeah, we talked about offers, we've talked about, for everyone just joining, we're talking about basics of improv and improv philosophy, kind of. So we're going through basics right now. So we've talked about offers, we've talked about no blocking, we've talked about no waffling, staying in the moment. Every good scene starts with a platform. Just like if you're building a house, you can't start without a foundation. So a platform... Oh boy, it entails, this is really going to prove how good my memory is. Who you are, who you are to each other. Oh yeah, don't kill the baby. Thank you, I'll get to that. Give me, give me a minute. Yeah, platform, who you are, who you are to each other. It's just, you remember in English class when you were like writing a story or learning about dissecting things and it's like who, what, where, why, when? That's what a platform is. Like, I think improv and English 20 are very comparable. They kind of go hand in hand. But within the first few seconds of your scene, maybe a few seconds is a bit extreme, but within the first little bit of your scene, you want to endow where you are. You want to let the audience and your scene partners know where you are. You want to know who you are to each other. Relationships are so important. What you're doing. Because if I start a scene and I just am like, hey, it's a nice day today, and like that's, and it just goes on from there and nothing happens, it's a bad scene. Like, it's not good. But if I go in and I say, man, I can't believe this movie theater is so packed for Smurfs 2. Mom, I thought you had advance tickets and now we're not going to get in. Like, even just in that sentence, we know the location, we know my relationship to my scene partner because I endowed that, we know what's happening, and things like why it matters will come later, but as long as you get that important stuff out of the way first, you're golden. Because there's nothing worse than being halfway through a scene and like doing something with someone and you forget someone's name and you just like don't call them by a name for the rest of the scene because you don't know what to call them, or you are an entire scene and the relationship stuff is great, but you don't know where you are. So once the relationship scene plateaus, you're stuck because you're just in an empty blob of limbo because you never were like, hey, we're in a, yeah, location, a good show and an even better improv philosophy. So yeah, don't kill the baby. So oh, by the way, for most people who don't know what this is and are just coming in and are like, this is the most basic stuff, why are you talking this to a camera? Junior Jellies is for 6th to 9th graders, so if you've been in high school improv your entire life and you're like, this is a cool improv live, and you come on and you're like, I'm learning nothing, take it as review. Yeah, so don't kill the baby. So it's a little barbaric, but the idea is if you were standing on the side of a road and you saw a baby walk into traffic and they were about to get hit by a car, your impulse would be to go and save them. Like, your impulse would to run out and save them. If you check that impulse and like go and you're like, is that a good idea? And then you go, that baby's dead. That baby's dead. So the idea that as it applies to improv is if you've got an impulse, listen to it. Like if someone's doing a scene and you're on the side and you feel like it needs something and you jump in to like be a third character or be a chair, maybe it needs a chair, and like you go in and then you keep yourself, like you're killing the baby, you're killing the impulse, you're killing the idea you had. And listening to that can lead to the best scenes, because the best scenes aren't super thought out. They're organic, and they come from people listening to each other. Listening is so important in improv. That's one of the reasons why I think learning improv makes you a better person, is it teaches you how to really listen to people. And that helped me in school. It's helped me with my parents. If they think I'm listening, or I am actually listening, and I can like repeat the information back at them, that saves my life a few times. Something important in improv is I got notes down here. If I look down here, it's because I got notes. Being real specific, adding details is so important. Being vague is not good for improv. And honestly, I don't think I'm very funny. I'm just gonna, like, am not the most witty person out there, I'm not the funniest person out there, but I get laughs when I do improv because I'm reactionary, I'm listening to things in the moment, and I'll, like, do little quips that, like, I'd say in real life, like, man, that was weird. Yeah, don't be coy, like, if you are not giving any details, that's just as bad as waffling, because you're putting all of the weight on your partner's shoulders. Like, improv isn't about being a star, it's about making your partners look good, and if everyone's making their partners look good, everyone's gonna look good, so don't be coy. Like, if you want to say something, say something. If I'm, like, pretending to flirt with you, you might not pick that up, because your brain might be somewhere else in the scene, but if I say, hey, I think you're really cute, that furthers that scene so much more. Makes it a lot more interesting to watch. Yeah, details. Yeah, no, I'm not very funny in improv. My humor comes from being ultra specific. One of the biggest laughs I've ever gotten in a scene was I was at improv camp and I was doing a scene and we were in an airport, and me and my son character, played by beautiful Harrison, if anyone knows him, probably not, but we were having an issue because he didn't want to go to Disneyland and his sister did, and I was like, listen, we live in Moose Jaw, we can only go to the Al Capone Museum so many times. And so people who've never been to Moose Jaw laughed because that's a ridiculous thing. An Al Capone Underground Tunnels Museum is objectively ridiculous. But people, the collection of Saskatchewan kids who had come to camp from Saskatchewan, who have been to Moose Jaw, they lost it because they've been to that museum or they've seen that museum. So, like, even Caden has gotten really good at this when we do it with the Junior Jellies, is being ultra specific. So if your location is a factory, instead of just being like, wow, this is a real cool factory, if you go in and you go, man, I can't believe we got lost in this Hyundai egglet factory. Like, even those are two dumb words off the top of my head because I've been watching too much Phineas and Ferb during this quarantine. But just those two together already adds so much more to the scene. It's so much more for your partners to pull off of. And it's funny! Like, it's objectively, like, if someone just said that out of the blue in a scene, you'd laugh. Like, even if you don't think it's the most funny, you'd laugh. Looking at my notes. So there's a quote, I think it's from David Johnstone. I butchered that name. I'm not totally sure if that's who it's from, though. But the quote is, the improviser who relies on jokes is on a treadmill, stuck on a treadmill of getting to the next joke. So what that means is a lot of people think that improv is comedy, and it can be comedy, but if you're relying just on jokes, the scene is going to suffer and you're not going to know how to get to that next point. So in my experience, and I'm very biased, like, no one style of improv is right. Everyone's got their different style, everyone's got their own idea of what improv is and how improv works. But in my experience and with my training, the best improv comes through telling stories. So people are going to connect more to familial, or like not familial, but like with actual real relationships than they are with jokes. You can tell the funniest jokes, but that's just going to get a laugh for the few seconds. If you can tell a riveting, really engaging story, people are going to be connected for the entire duration of your scene. Yeah, don't make jokes on purpose. Like, especially if there's a scene happening and you take the opportunity to just step in and make a joke, and that's it. That's all you had to offer the scene. Because then you're derailing the scene that happens, and you're adding nothing, and then the scene kind of stagnates. And one thing, especially that I've been trying to drive home with the Junior Jellies, too, because we all get in the pitfalls of this when we start improv, and we're young, and we start improv, of insult comedy, or being negative, and, like, it might get a laugh, but if you're in a scene and you're doing a scene with someone and you're just like, well, you're stupid, I don't want to listen to you, you might get a little laugh in the moment, but that's, like, the biggest block ever. Like, who wants to do a scene after that? But, you know, I'm all over the place. I'm trying to keep things concise and keep on track, but I'm all over the place. I apologize. But back to relationships and improv. Any scene it could be the wackiest scene ever, but if you've got a good relationship in that scene, it's going to be compelling and people are going to be compelled by it. Good words, Hayley. Like, for example, I don't think anyone here can relate to being chased by a bear. Or, like, being attacked by a bear, trapped by a bear. I don't think most of us have a lot of experience with bears. But if the scene is about two people trapped in a tent and there's a bear trapping them, and that scene is about maybe their relationship and how they're both scared and they're reacting to it differently and they're taking it out on each other or something, that's instantly more compelling. Because how many times have we as human beings been in a situation where it's high stress and we're anxious and we've taken it out on people around us? My drama teacher in high school was attacked by a bear and she used to use it for scenes all the time. Well, see, she's not here, so my point still stands. None of us have been chased by bears. But you see what I kind of mean? Like, yeah, you'll draw your audience in if you have a relationship you can connect with. I don't know if it's Paul or Nicole or both, but thank you. You're really helping me out. I used to compete in the CIG. Which is Canadian Improv Games. It's a high school theater festival, and one of the events is called the Life Scene, and what that is you're just trying to be real and honest and have real acting, and that's the point of the challenge. And a lot of times, high schoolers, bless their souls, will turn it into super angsty stuff, because you can't have real acting unless it's an Oscar moment, right? So a lot of times it'll be like coming out, bad dates, breakups, things like that, and it will get really angsty sometimes. But my favorite scene I've ever been a part of, and if you dig enough, it's on YouTube somewhere, but my favorite scene I've ever been a part of was my team's life scene in my grade 12 year, because we decided we didn't want to fall into the traps of being super angsty, so we did a format that for those scenes we'd get an object, and then we'd perform as those objects. And we would still be honest, but we'd be honest to these objects. So the scene we did for finals was we got spare tire. And the first thing Eric Wilkinson said when we got in our huddle was, they can't go over 50 on the highway. And we're like, cool, we'll use that. So what the scene ended up being about is the tire popped. I was a super cool, all-weather, great tire, and the spare tire was holding me back. And I felt like because they were less prepared, they were, I don't want to say disabled, but that's the word that's coming to my mind. So I'm sorry, but because they were less capable than I was getting really angry at them, the other tire, I'm talking about tires, Lord, but I was getting really mad at them for holding me back, because I thought we couldn't get to Disneyland fast enough because this tire's on it. And, like, that's relatable to a point. Like, it's a scene about tires. We're pretending to be tires, but, like, how many times have, like, you had a friend who is outperforming you and you feel less than? Or have you been, like, have you been in a group project or on a sports team where you feel like you're trying really hard and doing really well? Like, I had that when I played softball. I was on a team one year that I was trying so hard, and I didn't think anyone else was trying as hard as I was, and I felt like they were keeping me back, and I felt like if I was on a different team, maybe I had a chance of going to provincials. Maybe I could be better. But because I was on this other team, they were holding me back. So, like, that's a very real experience that people can relate to. And even though it's a scene about a bunch of tires, people can relate to it. Good scene. Love that scene. My favorite line in that scene was, "You're just a bunch of spare parts." That got a real oof from the audience. That was entertaining. So, another thing is, this isn't necessarily applicable to short form improv, but it's just on my mind. The best sets, the best things, the best sets of scenes, the best long form scenes have some variety to them. So, like, even if you look at Shakespeare, if you look at, like, Macbeth, like, it's pretty heavy. Any Shakespeare tragedy is pretty heavy, but, like, Shakespeare and, like, good writers know, good improvisers know that you're gonna lose your audience if you just have heavy stuff the entire time. So he has those comedic characters that come in for maybe just a couple scenes, and they break up the tension, they maybe, like, give some more exposition, and they go on their way. So I think improv's like that too. If you've got a long form set, Or even if you're doing short form and you're doing a bunch of little scenes. If one is super heavy, then make the next one comedic. If you're doing a lot of comedic stuff, try and do a more serious scene, because variety is the spice of life. Ooh, cliche machine, hell yeah. I've been talking for half an hour. This is the most surreal experience of my life. Hopefully it's going well and we can do it again next week. 5 people is more than 0, so, that's great. I said before that a good improv scene is very much like English class. My improv coach even got a comment from one of the English 30 teachers being like, every kid that comes from improv, when they come to my class, they know what they're talking about. Just because good improv comes from story arcs. It comes from natural story arcs. It comes from having real characters and real relationships and dynamic characters that change, and stakes, like making things matter. And those are all things that are important in literature, are important in movies and media, and that just carries through to improv. That's kind of all my notes that I had that I wanted to talk about today. Basically today was just me talking to myself about improv philosophy and really the basics of what makes a good scene. These live streams are going to be really weird, because usually this is the point. I mean, I wouldn't talk this much during Junior Jellies, but like we do some warm-up games and I talk a little bit about improv theory, and then I do a review, and then we jump into scenes and we practice them. And then after every scene I'd give notes and I'd be like, okay, what do you think you did good and what do you think you did bad, or what do you think you want to work on rather? And then we do more scenes. But I can't do that. I can't talk to a screen and be like, okay, now do improv in your own houses where I can't see you and I'll give you notes. Like, that's not gonna happen. Like, you can do improv in your own houses, but I'm not gonna be able to give you notes. So I don't know what to do from here. I think this went well. For those who did show up, I think seemed to enjoy it. I don't know, I can't see your faces. You seem into it, I guess. I probably will do it again next week. I've been doing this for half an hour. I hope everyone enjoyed it. This is surreal. As a person, as an improviser, perform improv for your pets at home as practice. Heck yeah. My entire life is improv. My entire life is just me walking around doing scenes to myself. My favorite kind of improv is rap improv, because I'm not saying like I'm a good rapper. I absolutely am not, but I really love the challenge of doing rap on stage improvised. So when I'm bored at home alone, I'll walk around my room and just like look at objects and be like, cool, I'm gonna do a couple bars about tissue paper. And like, I'll just try my best. Like, improv is everywhere if you let yourself have fun. Part of improv is just rediscovering the creativity and joy of being a kid. I think you're doing great. Tell stories of your own experience. Oh, cool. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's very much what I was talking about, too. Full circle. Yeah, people relate more to things. I guess I'll talk about why I wanted to make Improv Jelly. I didn't make Improv Jelly. Excuse me. Sorry. Why I wanted to make Junior Jellies. So when I was in high school, I played football in grade 9, and I liked it a lot, but there's no girls team. I played on the boys team, and the boys did not like having me there. So I had a really rough grade 9 year. I didn't have many friends. I didn't feel like I really had a place where I could be myself or that I belonged. And then I started drama class in my second semester, and improv happened, and then my best friend Elizabeth, oh, hi, Emma. My best friend Elizabeth took me to my first improv show. Moving on with those sounds, ad-lib lines. That's so much fun. Honestly, blind dubs are my favorite games anyway, or just me. It reminds me of a scene of Phineas and Ferb. I've been watching a lot of Phineas and Ferb lately, just to pass the time. And there's this one scene where Doofenshmirtz, they have drive-in movies across the street from his house. And of course, because he's in his house, he can't listen to it, but he can see the screen, so he'll dub it himself. And I like that. Anyway, back to my story. But so my friend took me to my first improv show at the end of my grade 9 year, and I really enjoyed watching it, and I thought it was so cool. So I auditioned for the team my grade 10 year, and I didn't think I'd get in, but I did get in, and I immediately found a place where people were celebrating others for who they are. It was like a safe space for me to just be myself and for me to be creative and for me to fail. Like, that's the biggest thing. I think even most adults are afraid of failure because, like, it's failure. But improv taught me how to fail. It taught me it was in a safe environment where, like, realistically, like, I've talked with my therapist about this ad nauseum, but as someone with, like, severe anxiety, she couldn't wrap her head around how I could do improv, how I could get on stage in front of sometimes 100 people and just make something up and do a scene like that. But something that brings me a lot of peace, too, is that improv is, like, the impermanence of improv. Like, if you do a really good scene, you feel great, and the audience feels great, and everyone feels great, and everyone enjoys it. But if it goes bad, no one will ever remember it again. It's not on film. Maybe someone will remember a really funny thing that happened, and they'll be like, hey, remember 2 years ago when we were doing a nice scene and you just screamed and you turned it to bad? Like, they might bring that up, but that's more fun. Like, no one's gonna remember it. It's not on film. It's so impermanent, and that's kind of why I'm so good at it. Anyway, again, I'm all over the place, but improv was such a safe space for me. It taught me how to fail. It gave me a group of people who unconditionally loved and supported me for who I am. And I think the nature of improv and nature of supporting each other on stage and off stage and being so positive, improv, and, like, having to be so vulnerable in front of people and just, like, bearing your soul and being so spontaneous, it builds bonds between people. And so it saved my life. And it was such a big part of my formative years, and it's to the point where, like, I'm still doing improv. Like, I didn't do improv because last year, what happens at improv stays at improv. But last year I didn't do improv. Like, I wasn't part of any companies for the first half of the year because I didn't think I'd have time because I started college, or I guess university now. And by February, I missed it because, like, I missed my creative outlet. I missed my place where I could be safe and I could just goof around. I missed those connections you make with people. And so I found Improv Jelly. And so I mean, not anymore because Miss Rona's really messing with all of us, but I worked at the library and I worked in the children's section, and they were looking for programs, and my mom was like, how about you do an improv program? So we did a tester in the summer, and then we brought the Junior Jellies, program, because I figured what group of people need a safe place to be themselves more than middle schoolers. Like, those are such years where you're finding yourself and you're finding real friends and, like, you're discovering who you are, and you need those safe places and you need those friends, and, like, what happens at improv stays at improv. So I don't know, I felt like there was kind of a vacuum for improv because in high school, I mean, for 2 out of 4 high schools, but in high school there are school teams and, like, drop-ins, and you can do it at school. When you're an adult, there's drop-in improv, like Improv hard words. Improv Jelly has the drop-ins every week. You can do improv and drop in, but, like, there was nothing really for those kids. And so I just felt like there was a vacuum, so I made a free option where kids can come and be safe. And honestly, part of it was also just setting Improv Jelly and the high schools up for success too, because if I can teach all these fundamental lessons and basics to these kids when they're 11, 12, 13, how good are they going to be when they're in senior year on Sue Mary or Tara Ket's teams, right? Like, if they come in grade 9 and they already know all the basics, home run, they're going to be superstars. So, and then after they graduate, they're going to be even bigger superstars, and they're going to come to Improv Jelly. Like, part of it was selfish, but part of it was just I wanted to get a safe space for these kids. Because, I don't know, the world's scary. You need an hour a week to just goof off and be yourself and feel like you're safe and you're loved and you're important and people are listening to you and your ideas are mattering and you're creative. Yeah, no, creative outlets. Well, even now that I'm in college, like, having, I guess I don't have them anymore, thanks pandemic, but having a couple hours a week to go to Improv Jelly and, like, hang out with my friends and just goof off and do some scenes. Like, it really gives you a moment to step out of your life and just put on a new person's life. Like, you can just forget about everything that's happening. I don't have to think about my assignments. I can just go and be whatever character the scene needs and just enjoy that and laugh and have fun. Yeah. I hope that if you're new to improv, I kind of shone a light on, camera shake. I shone a light on why I love it, why I think it's so important, why I think improv makes you a better person. I kind of introduced you to what improv is instead of what you kind of see in media of what it is. And if you know what improv is and you're seasoned, I hope that this was a nice little refresher, a nice social contact, because I know we're all going a little stir crazy right now, even if we're not actually talking. Like, it's kind of a face-to-face. I really like Improv, Jellies. I'm really happy that I joined. Oh, thank you. You're one of our newest members, and you've acclimated to it so quickly, and I hope that you, like, it's the safe place that I hope it is for you, that it is that for you. And you and Breck came to our spy show. I was very excited to see you guys in the front row. I was really excited when all of you came both nights. Like, Caden, you came to our first night too, and it's so rewarding. Like, part of it is me selfishly, thanks, Caden. Part of it was me selfishly just being, wanting to show off to people. Like, there's always that narcissistic part of people that want to perform and want an audience to perform to. But also, I really, like, loved having the Junior Jelly kids at the shows, because, like, when I'm teaching improv by myself, like, there's only so much explaining I can do. There's only so much I can do as for demos, whereas, thanks Kate, thanks Emma, there's only so much I can do for demos, whereas if there's a show, and we're, like, doing an actual, like, show, and you can see, oh, they're adults who are good at this, and they lay down the platform immediately. They aren't blocking each other. They're kind of asking questions, but not really. Like, it really just makes me able to be like, yeah, see, I was right. I told you. So it's really vindicating for me. But yeah, no, I'm glad you guys came and you enjoyed it. And hopefully this pandemic wrapped itself up and we can go back to doing improv and doing shows. I was so sad when today was supposed to be the day where we had your show, where you guys were included. And promise me, I promise you that we'll get that stage time for you guys. You guys are gonna perform at some point. I'm gonna get you guys to do a show. I'm gonna get you guys on stage. It's gonna happen. Pandemic be damned. You guys have been working so hard and you deserve to have that be seen. You know, I've been really missing improv throughout all of this. Like, that's one of the biggest things I miss. Like, to the point where I've been getting out my notebooks and writing down show ideas. Yeah, it's supposed to happen tonight. I'm so frustrated. Yeah, but I've been getting on my notebook and I've been putting down show ideas of things I want to do or things that I think could be cool formats in the future. And the world's gonna come back someday. Things will go back to normal at some point. We just gotta sit out this really weird period. I think it's really cool, though, that, like, if you think about it, we're living in history right now. Like, someday, 50 years from now, people are gonna talk about how this happened and how we all acclimated to it. Man, I'm just, like, winding down and a bunch of people are joining. I miss improv as well. I totally felt like it was a great place to be myself. It's a great environment. Hello, Dora. I'm really glad you felt that way, Emma. That's the biggest thing I wanted when I built it. And I think it's hard. Hi, Ryan. Well, I think it's hard, especially when you're in middle school, because, again, middle school's hard. High school's hard. Like, I'm 21 and I still struggle with who I am and who I present to people, or, like, who I want people to see me as. But, like, being able to build a safe space where you can just do whatever the heck you want and be creative and, like, not be insecure about people thinking about you the wrong way. Like, that's so important. I felt like that was so important for kids. Oh man, so many people joined in the last legs of this thing. I think I'm definitely going to try and keep this up weekly, just at the very least to keep this sense of community and this safe space going, and to get a sense of normalcy and routine to my life, because Lord knows I need it. And it's social interaction. Will I still be able to join? Yep, I mean, technically that's still middle school. Technically, according to the government, grade 9 is still middle school, so you can still join. I mean, if you are in the Catholic system, it is still middle school, so how could we cut them off, right? You can still join next year, don't worry. And even if you couldn't, I would kidnap you and make you stay. Because I love you all. One thing we're thinking of doing next year, or like I don't know if it can even happen anymore, but I've been trying to figure out how I can get Junior Jellies to be eligible to compete at, there's a Edmonton, there's the Wildfire Festival, that's where CIG is, that's where Noseball is, but there's also something called Wildfire Junior, and it's middle schoolers, and it's giving them an opportunity to kind of compete, not really, it's like Timbits soccer, you all compete, you all get a medal, that's what it is, but like it's still, you get access to the workshops, you get to work with all these other people, you get to watch other people perform, and I think watching people perform, watching people who aren't you performing is really important. Like, that's how you get better, is you improvise with people who are better than you. So I've been trying to figure out if that's even possible, because typically schools compete, not a library organization. So I don't even know if it's possible, but hopefully, because I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, I've been talking for like 45 minutes straight. My dogs have been locked up in my brother's room so they didn't bug me. My family has been staying off the internet so this live would run properly. So I think I've taken up enough of their time. I think it's time to end this one. So I hope this was good. Yeah, it's not even a thing I know it can happen yet, but my brain is like, well, this must happen because it's the coolest concept ever. But yeah, no, so I think I'm gonna sign off pretty quick. I hope this was a good refresher for some people. For some people who don't know improv, I hope this was good to teach, or good introductory to improv. If you're missing, if you need some good improv content in your life, a lot of high schools and CIG teams will post their scenes to YouTube, especially for the wildfire or for the wild card. Sorry I came late. Nice to see you guys in the chat. You weren't that late. It's fine. You'll be on time next week. I'll take attendance. But yeah, no. So a lot of CIG teams will post their scenes on Improv. If you just search CIG or CIG Improv, a lot of scenes will come up. If you look hard enough, you can see my grade 12 year teams, but I'm not gonna show you where those are. You have to find them for yourself because I look like a dork. Also, things like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Like, it's improv, it's more comedic, and not all improv is comedic, and it's kind of not improv in that if they mess up, they're not gonna air that, but it's still fun to watch, and you can still see people being creative and spontaneous and accepting and detail. You can see that sort of stuff. I've been watching a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, so they've got some improv challenges. They're not all great, and they're very focused on telling jokes, so maybe you can watch those to be like, that's cool, but also probably not how I should run things. But yeah, anyway, so I'm gonna sign off now. I hope you guys are all staying safe and happy and healthy and aren't going too crazy and have found ways to occupy your time, and things will get back to normal soon. We just have to kind of sit it out. So thank you for all joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your night. I'm going to bed because I've been up since midnight. Bye.